Good evening to all of you. I hope you can hear me well. The microphones work well. We have a second one. So, for the next 30 or 40 minutes, we have what we call a Fireside with Myrto. First of all, I have to admit something. I have been thinking about it the last 10 minutes. I have given tens, probably hundreds of talks. It has been one of the occasions I find very difficult to follow the previous speaker. And a lot of the previous speakers were very eminent professors, but I think what you can hear from like a year 9 student like Myrto sharing essentially her passion, her vision, and the day-to-day challenges, it can be very difficult to follow. So let me start with a very brief overview, because obviously this is not a medical lesson, and you're not medical students. So diabetes. We all know a lot of people who have diabetes. Diabetes essentially means having higher levels of glucose, of sugar in the bloodstream than our body is designed to have. When the levels are higher, the impact can be very detrimental on a lot of our organs, starting from the heart, the vessels, the kidneys, the eyes. Most people with diabetes have type 2 diabetes. And this is something, one of the take-home messages. Around only 1 in 10 has type 1 diabetes, which is very different from type 2. It can be, and it is much more difficult to treat and control. Type 1 is an autoimmune condition. Very often it starts at a very early age, around the age of 5 years old or 10 to 12 years old, but it can happen at any age. Anyone can get it. And this is another message. Type 1 diabetes is not a choice, it's not a lifestyle decision. Essentially, it just happens like a lot of other chronic medical conditions because of this is an autoimmune process. So moving to the type 1 diabetes, there is a lack of insulin, and insulin is absolutely essential and necessary in order to control the levels of glucose in our bloodstream. When the beta cells in the pancreas essentially are to a very large extent destroyed, there is lack of insulin. So that means that lifelong, if you have type 1 diabetes, you need insulin. There is a more, I would say, traditional regimen with 3, 4, 5 injections a day and pricking your fingers a lot of times. Or now, with advanced technology, you can have a sensor which all the time continuously is monitoring your blood glucose levels, but also a pump which essentially is attached to your body that is providing insulin. Then, with regards to the impact on the health, I would say there are 2 sides on this coin. It very much depends on the control of blood glucose. It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of support. We know that nowadays people living with type 1 diabetes can live a long and healthy and full life without essentially being excluded from any type of activities. But if the control is not as good as it should be, then we also know that, unfortunately, diabetes is one of the leading causes of kidney problems, of blindness, of amputations, of heart disease, of a lot of other problems. So you can see the 2 sides of this coin. So this is a very brief overview, and I hope that you have a better idea than you had before. And then I think, Myrto, I would like to share with us some of the challenges. What we used to say, especially when we firstly meet someone with a new diagnosis of diabetes, and I would say this consultation takes a very long time. It is estimated that 150 to 300 decisions per day has to be taken by a person with type 1 diabetes day in, day out for the rest of their lives. So what do you think about this number, Myrto?
Yes, I think that people with diabetes have to take a lot of external factors into account that someone who doesn't have diabetes wouldn't even think about doing, like running or eating a meal or something like that. For example, whenever I have to eat something, for example, my lunch, I have to calculate the amount and the timing of the insulin I have to take. So it's something that makes daily life a lot more complex, and it also contains many difficulties and many decisions that you have to take every single day.
Okay, and I appreciate all this, but also a lot of people with diabetes, as we say, we know that there are good days and bad days. And I can tell you from experience as a physician looking after people with diabetes for almost 20 years, and there have been tens of thousands of people, there is a great sense of unpredictability. So there have been studies, and we know that essentially there are tens of factors. So could you give us an example, Myrto? And I think there are also some essentially interactions with your family about taking the decision. We could see in the screen probably, let's say in the middle of a test, like on an exam.
Yes. So as I mentioned before, the complexity of diabetes means that you have to take urgent decisions that really can't wait a lot of the time. So I could be in school in the middle of the test and have to check my phone to see if I need to eat something, if I need to drink some juice. And I have my parents who support me and who I can communicate with in school as well to see what I can do. But yeah, I think there are definitely a lot of things that I have to take into account in my daily school life.
Okay, and I think it would be insightful for all of us to think about, let's say, a classic example of an urgent situation. Let's say what most people, I think, have heard about what a hypo is, essentially this hypoglycemia, so levels of blood glucose below the normal one. And we know that people feel quite unwell, they can feel shaky, sweaty, the body is under a lot of strain, and you can even lose your consciousness, collapse, and end up in the hospital. So how much of a problem can it be in your daily life or even in the school life?
So it is a very big problem. When my blood sugar is low, I often feel dizzy, that sort of sense of lightheadedness, maybe something that you would feel before you faint. When my blood sugar is high, I often feel tired or thirsty, or something like that. But this can vary from person to person, and everyone has different things that they deal with.
Okay. And I think as you can see at the back of the screen, you know, the next time, let's say, you take a decision or spontaneously you eat like a biscuit or you drink your favorite morning cappuccino, most of us, they don't have to take into account 42 different variables to take a decision about what they are going to do. So this, I think, shows to very, very small extent the complexity. And even taking into account all this, even the best algorithms in the world, I can tell you very often, almost in every consultation, finally we say that even if you are very experienced, even if you know everything inside out, there are factors which you cannot take into account. But let's going back to low or high blood sugars. Have there been occasions, let's say, in your school life or outside the school life when someone didn't appreciate how urgent it was for you to do something or didn't realize the importance or thought you were exaggerating?
Yes, so a lot of people don't understand how complex diabetes is, and many of the time the urgency of the decisions that need to be taken. And so I've faced a lot of this in my daily life and in my school life as well. But as I hope what tonight will show you is that everyone with type 1 diabetes is very grateful for all the support shown by their friends, their family, their teachers, everyone who can find the strength to kind of give that awareness and that support to people. But yeah.
Okay. And again, at the back of the screen, you can see the ups and downs. And actually, and I have to admit that this is a good scenario. So this is when you have relatively good control. A lot of people can, within very few minutes, go from very high levels to very low levels, which can impact them a lot. But I think extending on this, my experience as a physician is that a lot of people have conversations with friends or relatives, and a lot of close to them, they don't appreciate the difficulty because, for example, they say, I have type 2, I'm very well controlled, probably you make a mistake, probably you don't have all the right information and you don't have the right doctor. Would you like to make a comment on this about the type 2 and the type 1 and how often people essentially confuse type 1 with type 2?
Yeah, so it's a very common misconception between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. So I have type 1, and basically what that means is that my pancreas is not functioning at all. However, a type 2 may have some insulin in their pancreas. So what that means is that my blood sugar levels fluctuate a lot, and I have to take extra precautions and extra actions to make sure they're kept stable. And so that's definitely something that is really common for people to think and to assume. So I just wanted to clarify that there is a difference between the two.
Okay. I think also that it is a great opportunity to debunk some of the myths and the misconceptions. Another one, which also this has been shown in a lot of studies and surveys of people living with type 1 diabetes, is, and there was a recent survey actually in Australia and in Canada, more than 90% of people with type 1, very often they essentially feel that they are judged because they would like to have a sweet or a dessert. What would you like to say about this? Has it ever happened to you?
Yes, it has happened to me many times. There have been many comments of people saying, oh, maybe you shouldn't run, maybe you shouldn't do this, maybe you shouldn't eat that. And while I appreciate their concern for my safety, I think it's important to know that a lot of people can underestimate what diabetes is. And oftentimes, it isn't simple at all to take all these decisions, and there are a lot of factors you have to take into account, and there are a lot of different things you have to consider. So I have faced these comments a lot in my daily life in the past, but I think it's important to clarify that type 1 diabetics can do anything and everything.
Okay, I couldn't agree more. And also, I think this is another message that this is what happens when there is so much information as it happens nowadays. So we know, and this is the scientific consensus, that people living with type 1 diabetes, they can essentially eat whatever they like. Obviously, they should have it in moderation, but this applies to all of us. So in any way, they should not be restricted from specific activities or from not eating something. The other comment I would like to make is that in the past, and we're making great efforts as a community of healthcare professionals, people used to be called essentially diabetics in the same way that people were asthmatics or dyslexics. Do you feel as a diabetic person? You understand what you mean? In the way, essentially, that this implies a bias and a stigma of other people, that you are defined because of having type 1 diabetes.
No, I don't feel that diabetes defines me. I think it's definitely a part of who I am, and it has shaped so many aspects of my personality and who I am as a person. But I don't feel that it limits me in any way. On the contrary, I think that it strengthens me. And I think it's very important for all the people with type 1 diabetes out there to know that a condition doesn't define you, and that you can do anything that you set your mind to.
Okay, and I think one other aspect, which again has been studied in quite detail, is that very often people with type 1 diabetes, but even more teenagers and children, they're excluded from sports activities or from school activities, essentially in order to be protected, because there is misconception that they're sick or they are ill, so they should not take part. Has it happened to you, or what would you like to happen in order to make sure essentially this doesn't happen to your peers or other students?
It hasn't happened to me personally, but I've heard of a lot of different examples where people with type 1 diabetes have faced these kind of experiences, and it's a big part of it is the ignorance that they also face in their daily life, because not many people know what type 1 diabetes is. And so they often assume things that aren't true. And type 1 diabetics may be limited, and other people may tell them, oh, maybe you shouldn't do this, and may be excluded from things. And that can definitely hurt a person's pride, and I think it's something that no child should ever have to face.
Yes. And actually, I'm very glad that it has not happened to you, and I'm very glad that essentially we're at St. Catherine's, which has put all the measures in place, so this essentially you are included in all these activities. But I have to admit that there have been campaigns worldwide, because still, I would say, in a large proportion of schools worldwide, there are a lot of incidents in order, essentially, for teachers in gymnastics to feel safe, or for other things, for children not to be included. Another thing I would like also, do you have any experience to share with us with regards to feeling like stigmatized, or feeling like that you were not included, not only in school life, but in general because of type 1?
There's a lot of stigma around type 1 diabetes because, again, as I said before, a lot of people don't understand what it means. I have faced in the past, especially when I was diagnosed, because I was only 7 years old, and as one can imagine, you can't ask a 7-year-old to provide that support, be it your friend or anyone else in your class or in your year. So there were times that I felt very alone, that I felt invisible, and like no one could really understand what I was going through. But I don't feel that anymore, thankfully, because as I grow older, I'm trying to raise awareness as well through tonight's event. And I hope that more and more of you will understand what type 1 diabetes truly means.
Okay, great. And I think also what I would like to share with all of you and with you, Myrto, as we have discussed beforehand, is that if you go back 20 or 30 years ago, I can tell you that it's only a small minority of people with type 1 who are open about their conditions and the challenges they face. So I have to share with you that most people you meet in the clinic, actually, they share with you the experience that there are only 2 or 3 relatives or close friends who know about their conditions, and actually this very often can be very, very dangerous. So there are people essentially who don't even have a single person in the work environment they have ever shared this information, because they're worried that they will be judged, they will be isolated, or they will be discriminated. Moving back to one point about diagnosis, do you feel, do you remember, I know you were 7 years old, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Do you remember what kind of symptoms would you like to share with us, how you were feeling at that stage? You felt unwell?
Mm-hmm. So I was very tired all the time. I was very thirsty, so I would drink a lot of water. I would go to the bathroom quite a lot. I was losing a lot of weight, and I couldn't figure out why. So these were all things that really impacted my health and my daily life, and there were things that I didn't understand. I didn't understand what was happening to me. So yeah, I think it definitely.
Okay. Okay, and this also, I think, it's a very good opportunity. There has been a campaign in the UK during the last few years, in a lot of other countries, about the 4 T's. Essentially, this is toilet, so you need to go to the toilet to urinate very often. Thirsty, so you drink a lot of fluids and water. Thin, you lose rapidly weight. And tired, because these are the 4 classic symptoms, and still nowadays, 3 out of 4 people who are diagnosed, they recognize the symptoms, they, on their own and their families, very late, and this has as a result to be hospitalized, to be actually in a very serious condition, even in a life-threatening condition. So this is another message that essentially having any of these 4 T's, any of these symptoms, someone needs to consult a healthcare professional and check the blood sugar. This is a very simple test. So moving towards the end of this chat, so let's say in an ideal world, what do you expect from your classmates, from your teachers?
In an ideal world, I would like to have just that understanding of what type 1 diabetes is. You don't have to fully comprehend everything about it, but one thing that I would like is the support and the care and the understanding of all of you, because that truly means so much to me.
Okay, okay. And I hope that today's event will contribute towards this direction. And also I would like to add that the first, I would say, huge step is to be open, like we all are today, being open about type 1, being open about any essentially medical conditions we have and we all may face, or any other struggles, to build the resilience, to share our experience, and also, I think, beyond the type 1 and raise awareness. We're all here today to contribute towards a school community, but also a society of showing understanding and empathy, avoiding having stigma, so people are not defined by the struggles or by the medical conditions they have, and hopefully things will get better and better. And I think this is a great moment to see essentially how the school community, St. Catherine's, but also how, in general, the system can help with regards to school nurses, with regards to health literacy, with regards to a lot of initiatives about creating this environment and this culture. So this was the end of the Fireside chat. Anything you would like to add, Myrto? Feel free to add anything.
I don't think I would like to add anything.
Okay, thank you very much. It has been a great pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, it's our pleasure. Okay, we can carry on forever, you know, if you'd like to. Yes, we can carry on forever. Let's move to another, I think, important subject. Are you aware of any initiatives about raising awareness in type 1 diabetes? Let's say any lessons, any information, or any other chronic medical condition, because I think this is a general issue about building the health literacy from a very young age for the kids, and also building the health literacy for all of us as adults.
Yeah, I think it's very important to raise awareness, not only for diabetes, but for also other chronic conditions. And that's a part of why awareness means so much to me, because it really ensures that people with these chronic conditions can feel understood, they can feel seen, and they don't have to feel alone in everything they face and all the challenges and struggles of their daily life. I haven't heard of, personally, any awareness campaigns that I can think of.
Yes, yeah.
But I'm sure there are many. to raise awareness for diabetes and to kind of ensure that people know more about it.
Yes, I think, and this is a general statement, we need more and more, essentially, we need to build the awareness because knowledge is a power, this is a cliche, but I think this is a classic example when knowledge gives you the power. So essentially, obviously, we need empathy, we need to see the challenges from people's perspective, but there are so many myths nowadays, and especially with the social media, I can say that there are so many myths for so many different conditions. I think we need to know some basic facts. And this would help a lot. Anything, so let's move towards a slightly different direction. Let's say with regards to having the support at school, because there has been a lot of discussion, and I think we will get this opportunity to discuss about a school nurse, about someone who can essentially give you a hand, can support you, guide you, having a personalized plan.
Yes, there's a lot of support from school and support that I need also in my daily life because there are so many different things that sometimes I can't handle by myself. So I have the school nurses, I have my parents who support me from home, I have my teachers, the staff, and generally a lot of the people in my class, in my year, who always support me and ask me questions about what it means to live with diabetes and things like that.
Okay. Yes, and I could highlight more the importance, I think, of school nurses and also of educating. Education, yes?
Yes, so I always communicate with my parents and the school nurses as well. So it's a group chat that I check throughout the day before I do sports, before I eat, maybe even just because my blood sugar decided to fluctuate and to go low or to go higher. So that is something that I do on a daily basis, and that's why maybe a lot of you in school might see me checking my phone or texting someone or something like that. So I'm not asking how the weather is, just so you guys know. I'm asking, maybe what should I do now? Is this okay? Should I maybe wait to do this? Should I drink 2 sips of juice? So just to have a bit of added support. Yes, I did. I did have it in primary school as well. I think pretty much since my diagnosis, because especially since I was younger, I definitely needed that support because I couldn't handle it by myself. I didn't know what it would entail or what I had to do. So it's definitely very useful to me.
Okay, and you can see essentially, because we keep talking about the mobile phones and about the restriction, but this is an example. This is actually one of the examples where you can see how advanced technology and mobile phones can help. So that's why, as far as I know, and Myrto can confirm this, there has been an exclusion. So we're talking about being inclusive, but this is a very nice exclusion from the school towards Myrto, so she can have her mobile phone, because obviously this is essential for her health.
Yes. So that is why I will be using my phone a lot in school too. So it is very important to basically know. So my blood sugar levels are shared through the app that I use from my glucose monitor, and my family can see them, so they have an idea of what's going on. And I also use a system called closed loop, which is an automated system that makes life much easier and maybe makes the decisions I have to take a little bit less complicated.
Yes, and now we have the Minister of Education who has arrived, and it's a great pleasure of us. I would like also to add that school nurses are essential and very important, but also nowadays, with the very rapid advances in healthcare, and especially in technologies in type 1 diabetes, also it can be a challenge for the school nurses. Essentially, they need teaching and training. This can be, I can tell you, this can be even difficult for diabetologists. So it's essential to have the healthcare professionals assisting, but also it's essential to keep continuing training so they can assist the children even from a very young age.
Yes, I think that is very important to have people who know what to do in an emergency situation, for example, especially at school when there are many factors that maybe aren't so controlled, and when you don't have the same support system to lean back on if anything goes wrong.
Yes. And I would say probably my last comment would be that one of the initiatives which I would suggest, and at the moment this has been taking place through Diabetes UK in the UK, is a great effort in each school for every kid with type 1 diabetes. And a school at the size of St. Catherine's, I would say on average, you expect to have 1 or 2 children with type 1 diabetes to have personalized plans, and also you need to take into account plans about the trips, which are essential for your school life, plans about taking part in sports, plans about any emergencies. So my very last question would be, what about the trips and the excursions, which are so essential for your school life? Do you take part in all the trips?
Yes, I do take part in trips and in sports and in every aspect of my school life. I may need a bit of extra support to do it, but I do get there eventually, and that is something that is, I think, crucial for me, and I never feel excluded from trips or from sports or from anything like that.
Okay, so I couldn't thank you more, Myrto. I really enjoyed, and I hope this applies to you, this fireside chat. So let's now wait for the next speakers. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.